The mess hall of Station Perihelion hummed with the usual cacophony of 100 different species, attempting to coexist in close quarters. Marcus Webb navigated through the crowd with practiced ease, his tray loaded with something the kitchen staff claimed was beef stroganoff but looked more like protein paste arranged optimistically. Being one of only 12 humans on a station housing over 3,000 aliens had taught him to keep his head down and his expectations lower. He squeezed between a towering Krell merchant and the wall, angling sideways to avoid the creature's massive shoulder plates. That was when it happened. His hand, extended for balance, made contact with something firm yet yielding. He froze. Time seemed to slow as he registered what he had just done. The Valner woman in front of him turned around with fluid grace. She stood nearly 7 feet tall, her skin a deep shade of violet that seemed to shimmer under the station's artificial lighting. Her eyes, large and luminous gold, fixed on Marcus with an intensity that made his stomach drop. Then her lips, dark purple and remarkably human-like, despite the slight points at the corners, curved into a grin that showed teeth just a bit too sharp to be comforting. Marcus felt his face burning. He opened his mouth to apologize, but she spoke first. "You are very bold for such a small species," she said, her voice carrying a melodic quality that the translator implants could never quite capture accurately. "I am so sorry," Marcus managed, nearly dropping his tray. "It was completely an accident. The crowd, I was just trying to get through, and I did not mean to." She laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a summer breeze. Several nearby aliens turned to look, and Marcus wished the deck plating would open up and swallow him whole. "Relax, human. I am Vara. You are Marcus Webb, yes? The engineer who fixed the gravity coupling in Section 9 last week?" He blinked, surprised. "How did you know?" Word travels on a small station, especially when someone actually fixes something instead of filing a maintenance request that sits in a queue for 6 cycles. She gestured to an empty table in the corner. "Join me. You look like you are about to faint, and it would be inconvenient if you collapsed here in the middle of traffic." Marcus followed, mostly because his legs were moving before his brain could engage. They sat, and he poked at his alleged stroganoff while trying not to stare at her. Vara had no such compunctions. She studied him with open curiosity while consuming something that looked disturbingly alive. "You humans are fascinating," she said after a moment. "So much smaller than most species, so physically weak, and yet you have spread across the galaxy like a persistent fungus." "Thanks," Marcus said dryly. "That is exactly how I like to think of my species. Fungal." Her grin widened. "You misunderstand. Fungi are incredibly resilient. They adapt. They survive in conditions that would destroy more robust-seeming organisms. There is a saying among my people, the tree that does not bend will break in the storm, but the fungus simply grows around the obstacle." Marcus found himself relaxing slightly. "So what brings a Valner to the edge of nowhere? Your people usually stick to the core worlds. I could ask you the same question. Humans are rare out here. Job pays well. Or it did before the company restructured and decided engineers are overpaid." He shrugged. "Now I am just waiting out my contract and hoping my next posting is somewhere with better food." "Honest. I appreciate that." Vara leaned back, her chair creaking under her weight. "I am here because I made certain people on my homeworld very uncomfortable with my research. They suggested politely but firmly that I continue my work somewhere far away." "What kind of research?" "Comparative xenobiology. Specifically, I study how different species approach problem-solving when faced with extinction-level threats." Her golden eyes gleamed. "Humans are particularly interesting in this regard." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "How so?" "Your species has faced extinction dozens of times. Climate catastrophe, nuclear war, asteroid impacts, plague, artificial intelligence gone rogue. Each time, you came within a hair's breadth of annihilation. And each time, you survived through sheer stubborn refusal to die. I am not sure that is something to celebrate. Seems like we are just really good at almost destroying ourselves. But you do not, Vara insisted, leaning forward with sudden intensity. That is the point. The Krell faced one major plague, and their population dropped by 90%. They have never recovered their former glory. The Vex encountered a single rogue AI and had to abandon 3 entire star systems. One threat, catastrophic response. But humans? You face threat after threat and somehow muddle through. Marcus thought about Earth's history, about all the times humanity had stood at the brink and somehow stepped back. I think we are just too stupid to know when to give up. Or too brave, Vara countered. I have been studying human history for 3 cycles now. Do you know what I have learned? Every other species in the galaxy has a breaking point. A line that, once crossed, triggers complete societal collapse or extinction. Humans do not seem to have that line. Or if you do, you have never found it. That sounds more like a curse than a blessing, perhaps. She tilted her head, studying him. But it makes you survivors. And in a galaxy that is far more hostile than most realize, survivors are precious. The conversation drifted to lighter topics after that. Vara told him about her homeworld, a planet with 3 suns where night came only once every local year. Marcus described Earth's seasons, the concept of snow, the way autumn leaves changed color. They talked until the mess hall began to empty, until the lighting shifted to night cycle amber. When they finally stood to leave, Vara placed a hand on his shoulder. Her palm was warm, and Marcus was acutely aware of how easily she could crush his collarbone if she wanted to. Thank you for the conversation, Marcus Webb. It has been educational. Same here. And again, I really am sorry about the do not apologize. Her grin returned. It was the most interesting thing that has happened to me in weeks. Besides, among my people, such contact is considered a sign of good fortune. Really? No, but I enjoyed watching you panic. She laughed at his expression. I am joking, mostly. We should speak again. Your perspective on survival might prove useful to my research. Over the following weeks, they did speak again. And again. Marcus found himself seeking out Vara in the mess hall, in the observation decks, anywhere their schedules might overlap. She seemed to enjoy his company, or at least enjoyed studying him like a particularly interesting specimen. It was during one of these conversations, nearly a month after their first meeting, that alarms began to wail throughout the station. Marcus's comm unit crackled to life with the station commander's voice, tense and clipped. All personnel to emergency stations. We have an incoming vessel, identity unknown, weapons hot. This is not a drill. Vara's expression turned grim. Pirates. They have been growing bolder in this sector. The station shuddered as something impacted the shields. Marcus grabbed the table to steady himself. What do we do? Follow protocol. Get to a shelter, and another impact, harder this time. The lights flickered. Somewhere in the distance, metal screamed as hull plating buckled. Vara straightened to her full height, and Marcus saw something shift in her expression. The friendly researcher vanished, replaced by something harder, more primal. Actually, no. Come with me. Where? You are an engineer, yes? Then we are going to engineering. If this station falls, everyone dies. I refuse to let that happen while sitting in a shelter. Marcus should have argued, should have followed protocol, should have done anything other than what he did next. But he looked at Vara, at the fierce determination in her golden eyes, and found himself nodding. They ran through corridors filled with panicking aliens, against the flow of traffic heading toward shelters. Another impact nearly threw them off their feet. Marcus's heart hammered in his chest, but his mind was already racing ahead, cataloging systems, thinking through solutions. The engineering bay was chaos. The head engineer, a Krell named Torvon, was shouting orders in 3 languages at once. Sparks showered from an overloaded conduit. The main display showed the pirate vessel, a converted freighter bristling with weapons it had no legal right to possess. "Webb?" Torvin's voice boomed across the bay. "What are you doing here?" "Helping." "What do you need?" "Shields are failing. Weapons are offline. We are dead in the water." Marcus moved to the nearest console, his fingers flying over controls. Vara followed, her researcher's mind quickly grasping the basics of the station's systems. Together, they worked, Marcus calling out instructions, Vara executing them with precision. The pirates were attempting to dock, to breach the hull and board. Standard tactics: disable, board, loot, leave no witnesses. Marcus had read the reports, had heard the stories. His hands trembled, but he forced them steady. "There," he said, pointing at a schematic. "The old cargo accelerator in Bay 7. We decommissioned it last year, but the power coupling is still active." Torvin's eyes widened. "You want to use it as a weapon?" "Unless you have a better idea." It took 18 minutes to reroute power, to bypass safeties, to turn a simple cargo launcher into an improvised mass driver. 18 minutes of the pirates cutting through the outer hull. 18 minutes of every person on the station holding their breath. When Marcus activated the accelerator, it hurled a 20-ton cargo container at nearly 0.3% light speed. The container, filled with compressed ore and moving at relativistic velocity, hit the pirate ship amidships. The vessel simply ceased to exist in any meaningful sense, transforming into an expanding cloud of ionized particles. The engineering bay erupted in cheers. Torvin clapped Marcus on the back, hard enough to nearly knock him over. Vara stood beside him, her grin fierce and proud. "That," she said, "is exactly what I am talking about. Any other species would have accepted their fate. Humans look at a cargo launcher and see a weapon. You refuse to be beaten." Marcus slumped against the console, adrenaline fading into exhaustion. "I just did not want to die today." "Precisely." Vara's hand found his shoulder again, and this time the gesture felt almost protective. "You survived. And in doing so, you saved 3,000 others. This is why I study your kind, Marcus Webb. This stubborn, beautiful refusal to surrender." Later, after the chaos had settled and the station commander had personally thanked him, Marcus found Vara in the observation deck. She stood before the viewport, watching the stars. "You know," Marcus said, joining her, "when I accidentally touched you that first day, I never imagined it would lead to this." She laughed, that wind chime sound he had grown to appreciate. Life is strange that way. The smallest accidents can change everything. "So what happens now? You finish your research and head back to the core worlds?" "Eventually. But first, I think I will stay here a while longer. My research subject has proven far more interesting than I anticipated." She glanced at him, her expression warm. "Besides, someone needs to document this for the academic journals. The day a human engineer turned a cargo launcher into a warship killer. Your species never fails to surprise." Marcus smiled, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, humanity continued to survive, to adapt, to refuse the luxury of defeat. And here, on a distant station at the edge of known space, one human had just added another small chapter to that ongoing story, the galaxy. He thought, had no idea what it was in for. Vara seemed to read his thoughts. She grinned, showing those sharp teeth, and for the first time, since that accidental touch in the mess hall, Marcus grinned back. The stars burned on, indifferent and eternal. But in their light, humanity endured. And that, Marcus decided, was enough.